All right, so now hopefully we're having some fun. We put everything together. It's our own composition. We've cropped down. If you need to, you can crop to help your composition. You know, if I wanted to shrink it a little bit, if I was worried about stuff going on over here. The requirements of the assignment are that it's at least 8 by 10 inches and at least 300 pixels per inch, but we way overshot that. And that you use at least 5 references, right? So if I thought this was a better composition, I might crop it to this. And I'm not sure, maybe it is, because this is kind of boring over here. So yeah, why don't I do that? Maybe give myself a little bit more sky, because I said I would put a lunar eclipse in there. Now just to show you how atmosphere works, let me do that quick. So I go to my references. I go to my lunar eclipse. I bring in the element I like that has plenty of size. Right, I'm going to initially place my smart element. Maybe it's about that size. Let's see, where should it be compositionally? Probably over here. Instead of just, well, yeah, I can just do the rough lasso and then duplicate. Turn off the smart layer behind. Then to get rid of the black, I just use the magic wand. I'm going to use contiguous. Then I'm going to soften by refining edge and let it feather, but not quite so much. You can see in the preview. So that's about right. Then I can delete from it. There you go. And the more I delete, the more it will feather it. So it's nice and soft edged. And now it looks a little weird, right? It's soft edged in the background there. How do I get it to kind of blend in? Well, I take its opacity away. And I can let the stars kind of fill in front of it, which looks a little weird because we know stars should be behind the moon. So what's another way I can get that same effect? I can double click on it, use layer styles, and do a color overlay, and then steal that color directly from the background. And say OK, and then play with the opacity of that color. And I've set it on lighten, so it will take out the hard edges but not all the color. If I just say normal, it'll just fill the whole thing in, and that can work too. See how that kind of pushes it into the atmosphere. But I could play with different blending modes. Yeah, I think I'm probably going to want normal, because this is a lunar eclipse in the background. Okay, then I might take its overall opacity down just a slight bit, like very slight. And now I'm going to add something called texture fills. And if I wanted to move that planet anywhere, because it's becoming too strong a focal point, it will take those effects with it. I'm trying to think, where would it look better? I think it probably looks better over here. All this cosmic dust. What do you guys think? Should the planet go on the left or the right? Left. Yeah, I agree. All right. So I can nudge it. I can always hit Command Z if I want to undo it. Okay, now I've got these smart layers I can get rid of, or these elements that I wasn't able to use. Oh, that's kind of cool though. I might want to keep that and use it later. Let's do a rough cutout really quick. Yeah, these might be fun to play with later. That'll be a lot of cutting out. So right now I'm just going to leave that layer there, but just leave it turned off. Okay. But then that I don't need. Yep, that's not going to help. This, I've already got what I need from it. This I don't need anymore. we're trying to save on memory a little bit here. All these smart layers from the bottom, they can go. Just select them and delete. And I want my background to be filled in completely with white. Because I changed the size a little bit. Remember, I grew it. So I'm going to unlock it and then fill it with white. I've still got my sketch there, and I want my sketch there, locked in the background, but I can turn it off. And now you can see how everything kind of filled in as planned. So how do we finish this off? Well, there's little things that we can do that will help everything come together, just like glazing. And the easiest thing to do that I just love playing with digital art is to bring in a new element that is a soft-edged, transparent element that will glaze over everything selectively. And it's what I call a texture fill. So if you just do a Google search for texture fill, or you can look for a specific type. I don't know if I read that term somewhere or what, but you'll see all these kind of different designers putting up assets. You know, sandpaper, marbling, rocks, starry night, grass, hard grain. These are just texture fills, right? But I want something that's kind of cloudy and misty. And I want it to be somewhat large. So I'm going to go to Tools, Size, at least large. Not larger than 10 megapixels because it's going to be very soft edge. And then I want something that's really cloudy and misty. So cloudy mist, and I do not want watermarks, right? So this is helpful if that's a good quality reference. This is helpful if it's a good quality reference. Open link in new tab. Ooh, this color, this could be really nice, but it might have a watermark in there. These are just photos of smoke. Those are always very helpful, used by special effects artists all the time. And we're going to do it to do this kind of effect, separating the foreground from the middle ground from the background. Yep, so it has a watermark. Donald Trump would say, sad. But let's see if we have something. Yeah, we're going to have to live without the rainbow effects. We can put them in ourselves. All right, here we go. So we got this one. And you can see it's just kind of gray and hazy, but it has that variation to it. Save it to the desktop. Let's find another. Always view it at full size. This is from a painting, so I don't want to use that because I don't want that canvas texture in there. Here we go. This is just a very straightforward one. Yeah, this could work. Don't worry about the color of it. We have control of all these things. And then this one is just super boring. Just looks like a gray cloud, right? But it has enough variation, even it can be useful to us as a glazing tool. Okay, so now I get out of that. Let me just show you how it works. So I'm going to bring one in. I'm on my very top layer, so that whatever I bring in will go on top of it. And I'm going to stretch this, just like I do. I'm not worried about distorting it, because I'm just mostly using it just for its softness. Then the first thing I'm going to do is take its opacity way down. Ooh, look. The fog is coming in. So I know I'm not going to use this at full opacity, but just the color that it has, that kind of warm color, is going to help glaze all of my layers together. Now remember, I organized my layers. It makes sense, foreground to background. So I could also sink this texture behind my foreground elements, right? Let's probably move my planet back more. And decide where it should come from. Or I can leave it on top and do this. And this is what I love doing. So I take my eraser, I keep it at a low opacity, about 20, really big, as soft as possible. And now I'm just going to make a duplicate of that texture overlay, rasterize it so I can erase from it, and just, it's like dodging and burning, but we're going to be bringing our focus into the elements we want, especially the mid, what am I thinking of? The middle ground. Because often when we look at a scene, the middle ground is what we focus on, and that way the foreground's a little blurry, the middle ground is sharp, and the background's a little blurry. But the night sky, maybe I want that to still be pretty clear. So by erasing selectively, you can kind of control what parts are shown. That's a big difference, right? That's without erasing. This is with erasing. And you can go back in history if I want to erase it a little bit less. Take my opacity down, just be a little softer with it because of those shells. Okay, so that's working well. Here are the other advantages you have with a texture fill. I can play with its levels. Darken, brighten, really make extreme, really vignette and make the shadows strong. Or I can limit it if I feel like I have too much contrast. One way or the other, I can limit them. And I just decide kind of what looks best for my scene. I can also play with the color. And this makes a huge difference. So playing with color balance on your texture fill. I can make everything a little bit pinker, a little bit greener. This is glazing, right? It's like taking that yellow paint. I can push everything a little bit more cyan, which I might do because the thing that's in my foreground or in my middle ground that's so sharp is very cyan. And a little bit bluer. Work with the highlights, make them a little warmer or a little cooler. Now my image is looking really cold. So I can shift my shadows the other way, make them a little warmer again. So what kind of difference does that make? Well, it definitely cooled everything down. And I can play with saturation. Maybe I just want the whole thing to be a little bit more saturated. This is the cloud, though, not what's behind it. But ultimately, I can lighten it or darken it, just like you would with levels. To make it more of a night scene, I'll take its overall. It's just the cloud, but I'm going to darken the cloud a little bit. I can shift its hue, which moves all of the colors proportionally together. Shift it to one side or the other. That looks kind of nice. Minus 27. What does 0 look like? Yeah, 0 looks nice, but minus 20. See if we like that. Yeah. So that helps separate things out. Now, what if I want to add a little bit more texture in this middle? Well, I can bring in another texture overlay. Stretch it over the whole thing. But this time, let me turn it off for a second. I'm going to lasso just around the element that I want it to cover. So there we go. And then I'm going to duplicate from there. And I'm basically going to make my cloud out of this flat color. Then I go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. and I can make my own